In the summer of 1940, as the German Wehrmacht swept through the streets of Paris, the city that had once stood as a beacon of culture and freedom found itself under the shadow of an oppressive regime. The occupation marked a profound shift in the daily lives of Parisians, who now navigated a landscape filled with uncertainty and fear. Beneath the bustling streets, the Paris metro continued its rhythmic hum, a lifeline for the city's inhabitants. To the German officers, this intricate network of tunnels and tracks was not just a means of transportation, it was a symbol of efficiency that they believed would serve their military ambitions well. German officers, accustomed to the punctuality of their own railways, were initially impressed by the French system. They praised its reliability and the ease with which it could be integrated into their logistical operations. The metro, with its extensive reach across the city, became a vital asset for the occupiers, facilitating the movement of troops and supplies. However, this admiration was steeped in a dangerous underestimation of the French spirit. The German command, buoyed by their swift military victories, believed that the French populace would remain passive, cowed into submission by the rapid collapse of their military. But beneath the surface, a simmering discontent was brewing. The occupation had stripped the French of their autonomy and ignited a fierce desire for liberation. The railway workers, who were integral to the operation of this vast network, were among the first to feel the stirrings of resistance. Many had served in the French military or had family members who had fought against the German advance. Their intimate knowledge of the railways, coupled with a deep-seated patriotism, positioned them as potential agents of defiance. When the occupation deepened, whispers of sabotage began to circulate among the railway workers. They were acutely aware of the vital role that the railways played in the German war effort and understood that disrupting this system could have far-reaching consequences. The German command, however, remained largely oblivious to these undercurrents, continuing to rely heavily on the French railways to transport troops, equipment, and supplies across occupied territories. The efficiency of the system allowed for rapid mobilization and redeployment, critical components of the German military strategy. Throughout 1941 and into 1942, the German officers maintained their confidence in the railway system, viewing it as a seamless extension of their own infrastructure. They dismissed any notion of organized resistance, believing that the French spirit had been broken. Yet, unbeknownst to them, the very workers they depended upon were beginning to transform their knowledge and skills into tools of sabotage. The resistance prepared for a confrontation that would test the resolve of both occupiers and occupied, as the railway workers prepared to reclaim their agency in a time of despair. As 1942 drew to a close, the German command remained largely unaware of the brewing storm. Their confidence in the railway system, once a source of pride, would soon become a liability. The Paris metro, which had served as a symbol of their logistical prowess, was on the brink of becoming a conduit for resistance. The railway workers, armed with their intimate knowledge of the system, were ready to strike back against their oppressors, turning the very tools of their occupation into instruments of defiance. The occupation of France by German forces during World War II was a complex event that altered the course of history. Following the swift defeat of the French military in June 1940, the country was divided into zones of occupation, with Paris at the heart of the German-controlled territory. The city, known for its rich history and cultural significance, became a focal point for the German command, who sought to extract resources and maintain control over the French populace. The Paris metro, inaugurated in 1900, was an engineering marvel of its time, boasting an extensive network of lines that crisscrossed the city. By the time of the occupation, it had become an essential part of daily life for Parisians, facilitating not only commuting but also the movement of goods and services. The metro was a lifeline, connecting neighborhoods and enabling the flow of people throughout the city. For the German command, this system represented a logistical advantage that they believed would support their military operations. However, the occupation brought significant changes to the daily lives of Parisians. The German military presence was palpable, with soldiers patrolling the streets and enforcing curfews. The atmosphere was charged with tension, as the French populace grappled with the realities of living under foreign rule. Food shortages, rationing, and restrictions on movement became commonplace, leading to widespread discontent. The Vichy government, established as a puppet regime, sought to maintain a semblance of normalcy, but the underlying resentment continued to fester. Amidst this backdrop of oppression, the seeds of resistance began to take root. The railway workers, who had long been the backbone of the French transportation system, were uniquely positioned to challenge the occupiers. Many of them had experienced the horrors of war firsthand, either through their own service or through the suffering of their families. This shared experience fostered a sense of solidarity among the workers, who began to discuss the possibility of organized resistance. The logistics of resistance were fraught with challenges. The railway workers had to navigate a complex landscape of surveillance and repression. The German command was quick to respond to any perceived threats, deploying security forces to monitor railway stations and inspect trains. Despite these obstacles, the workers began to communicate in secret, sharing information and devising plans to disrupt the German war effort. Their intimate knowledge of the railway system became a powerful tool, allowing them to identify vulnerabilities and exploit them. As 1943 approached, the broader context of the war began to shift. The German advance had stalled on the Eastern Front, and the Allies were gaining momentum in North Africa and Italy. This shift in the tide of war provided a glimmer of hope for the French resistance movement. The growing realization that the Allies could potentially liberate France inspired many to take action, fueling the desire for a free and independent nation. In this charged atmosphere, the clandestine group known as Resistance Vert emerged among the railway workers. Their formation was a direct response to the injustices of the occupation and the need to reclaim agency in a time of despair. Resistance Vert, translating to iron resistance, was born out of necessity and opportunity, as the workers recognized their unique position to carry out acts of sabotage against the German occupiers. The members of Resistance Vert came from diverse backgrounds, united by a common goal: to disrupt the German war effort and reclaim their homeland. Engineers, conductors, station masters, and maintenance crews banded together, sharing their expertise and resources to devise plans that would turn the railway system into a tool of resistance. Operating in secrecy, they communicated through coded messages and clandestine meetings, always aware of the risks they faced. The stakes were high, as the German command was quick to respond to any perceived threat. The railway workers understood that discovery could mean arrest, deportation, or execution. Yet, their resolve only strengthened in the face of danger. They recognized the importance of their actions in the broader context of the war and were determined to play their part in the fight for liberation. When the plans of Resistance Vert began to take shape, the railway workers employed a variety of tactics to achieve their objectives. They sabotaged tracks, tampered with signals, and misdirected trains, all while maintaining the appearance of normal operations. Their actions were carefully coordinated to maximize disruption while minimizing the risk of detection. The German command, still confident in the reliability of the railway system, was slow to realize the extent of the sabotage. The emergence of Resistance Vert marked a critical turning point in the French resistance movement. It demonstrated the power of collective action and the impact of civilian resistance against a formidable occupier. The railway workers, once seen as passive participants in the occupation, transformed into active agents of defiance. Their ingenuity and bravery would soon have a profound impact on the course of the war, as the German command began to grapple with the reality that their prized transportation system was being systematically undermined. As 1943 unfolded, the efforts of Resistance Vert began to bear fruit. The railway workers, emboldened by their early successes, intensified their sabotage activities, targeting key supply lines and transportation hubs. The German command, initially dismissive of the disruptions, soon found themselves grappling with a logistical nightmare. Trains that were supposed to deliver vital supplies to the front lines were delayed or rerouted, causing chaos within the Wehrmacht's operations. The tactics employed by Resistance Wehr were varied and effective. Railway workers would loosen bolts on tracks, causing derailments that halted entire supply chains. They would tamper with signals, sending trains down the wrong tracks and creating confusion among German operators. In some cases, they would even remove sections of track altogether, forcing lengthy repairs and further delays. Each act of sabotage was a calculated risk, carried out with precision and stealth. One particularly audacious operation occurred in the summer of 1944, when a group of railway workers orchestrated a series of coordinated attacks on the Paris-Lyon line, a critical artery for German troop movements. Under the cover of night, they meticulously planned their actions, ensuring that the trains carrying supplies and reinforcements would be caught off guard. By loosening the tracks and misdirecting signals, they created a perfect storm of chaos. The result was a derailment that not only destroyed several freight cars but also injured German soldiers, sending shockwaves through the command structure. The impact of these actions was felt across the occupied territories. German officers, once confident in the reliability of the French railway system, were forced to confront the reality that their logistical framework was being systematically undermined. The disruptions caused by Resistance Wehr not only delayed the delivery of supplies but also hindered the movement of troops, affecting the Wehrmacht's ability to respond to Allied advances. As the Allies prepared for the D-Day invasion, the sabotage efforts of the railway workers became increasingly critical, contributing to the overall weakening of German defenses. As the sabotage intensified, the German command launched investigations to identify and root out the perpetrators. They increased security measures, deploying guards at key railway stations and conducting frequent inspections of trains and tracks. Despite these efforts, the railway workers continued their activities, adapting their tactics to evade detection. The cat-and-mouse game between the occupiers and the resistance became a defining feature of the occupation. In response to the growing threat posed by Resistance Wehr, the German authorities implemented severe measures. They established a special unit tasked with countering sabotage, employing informants and conducting widespread arrests of suspected resistance members. The atmosphere of fear and suspicion permeated the railway system, yet the resolve of the workers only deepened. They understood that their actions were not merely acts of defiance, they were vital contributions to the larger struggle for liberation. The bravery and ingenuity of Resistance Wehr did not go unnoticed. Their actions inspired other forms of resistance across France, as civilians took heart from the railway workers' defiance. The disruptions caused by the sabotage efforts also had a significant impact on the morale of the German troops, who began to question the invincibility of their command. The once confident occupiers now faced a growing sense of unease, as the resistance movement gained momentum. Throughout 1944, the sabotage efforts of Resistance Wehr escalated in both frequency and scale. The railway workers began to collaborate with other resistance groups, sharing intelligence and coordinating operations. This newfound unity among the various factions of the French resistance amplified their impact, as they launched simultaneous attacks on multiple railway lines, creating a web of disruption that the Germans struggled to contain. One of the most notable operations occurred in the fall of 1944, when a coordinated strike targeted the rail yards in Lyon, a major logistical hub for the German military. Under the cover of darkness, a group of railway workers, supported by members of the local resistance, infiltrated the yards and set fire to several trains loaded with munitions and supplies. The resulting inferno illuminated the night sky, signaling a powerful message of defiance to both the occupiers and the French populace. The destruction of these supplies not only hindered German operations but also served to galvanize the spirit of resistance among the French people. As the Allies advanced from the south, the sabotage efforts of Resistance Wehr played a crucial role in disrupting German supply lines and troop movements. The railway workers, once seen as passive participants in the occupation, had become active agents of defiance, their bravery and ingenuity contributing to the eventual liberation of France. The German command, now acutely aware of the threat posed by the resistance, found themselves in a precarious position, forced to divert resources to combat the very system they had once relied upon. By the year of 1944, the efforts of resistance Wehr had become a critical component of the broader resistance movement. Their actions had not only disrupted German supply lines but also demonstrated the power of collective action against a seemingly invincible foe. The railway workers, emboldened by their successes, continued to push the boundaries of resistance, knowing that each act of sabotage brought them one step closer to liberation. While the war drew to a close, the legacy of resistance Wehr would endure, serving as a testament to the courage and resilience of those who dared to defy oppression. Their story would be remembered not only for the impact of their sabotage but also for the spirit of unity and determination that characterized the French resistance as a whole. The railway workers had transformed their knowledge and skills into a powerful weapon against tyranny, leaving an indelible mark on the history of World War II. As the Allied forces advanced into France in the summer of 1944, the impact of resistance Wehr's sabotage efforts became increasingly evident. The German military, stretched thin and demoralized, struggled to maintain control over the territories they had occupied for years. The liberation of Paris in August 1944 marked a significant turning point, not just for the city but for the entire nation. In the immediate aftermath of the liberation, the contributions of resistance Wehr were celebrated by the French populace. The railway workers, who had risked their lives to undermine the occupiers, were hailed as heroes. Their acts of sabotage had not only disrupted German logistics but had also inspired a sense of hope and resilience among the French people. As the Allies moved through the countryside, they were met with cheers and celebrations, a stark contrast to the oppression that had defined the previous years. However, the year of the occupation did not erase the scars left by the war. The railway workers, now recognized for their bravery, faced the daunting task of rebuilding a nation that had been ravaged by conflict. The infrastructure of the French railway system had suffered greatly during the war, with many lines damaged or destroyed due to sabotage and military operations. The workers who had once sabotaged the tracks now found themselves in the position of repairing and restoring them, a bittersweet irony that underscored the complexity of their experiences. In the months following liberation, the French government sought to acknowledge and honor the contributions of the resistance movements, including resistance Wehr. Many railway workers were awarded medals and recognized for their bravery, yet the full extent of their sacrifices was often overlooked in the broader narrative of the war. The focus shifted to the military victories of the Allies, and the stories of those who had fought from within the shadows began to fade from public memory. Despite this, the legacy of resistance Wehr endured. The railway workers had demonstrated the power of collective action and the importance of resistance in the face of tyranny. Their actions had not only disrupted the German war effort but had also laid the groundwork for a renewed sense of national identity and pride in post-war France. The spirit of defiance that had characterized their struggle became a symbol of hope for future generations, a reminder that ordinary people could rise against oppression and effect change. As France began to rebuild, the railway system became a focal point for economic recovery. The workers who had once sabotaged the tracks now played a crucial role in restoring the network, ensuring that it could once again serve as a vital artery for commerce and transportation. The resilience of the railway workers mirrored the resilience of the nation itself, as France emerged from the ashes of war determined to reclaim its place in the world. In the years that followed, the story of resistance Wehr would be retold in books, films, and documentaries, serving as a testament to the courage and ingenuity of those who dared to resist. The railway workers, once seen as mere cogs in the machine of occupation, were recognized as key players in the struggle for liberation. Their legacy would inspire future generations to stand against injustice and fight for freedom, reminding them that the fight for liberation is a journey worth undertaking, no matter the cost. As 1944 dawned, the efforts of resistance Wehr had escalated into a campaign of sabotage that reverberated throughout the German military command. The consequences of their actions were profound, not only for the Wehrmacht's logistical operations but also for the broader landscape of resistance in occupied France. The German command, no longer confident in their control over the railways, faced a crisis that threatened to unravel their carefully constructed war machine. The immediate consequence of the sabotage was a significant disruption in the supply lines vital for the German military's operations. Trains laden with ammunition, food, and reinforcements were delayed or derailed, leading to shortages at the front lines. German commanders, frustrated and bewildered by the sudden inefficiencies, began to suspect that they were facing a coordinated effort rather than isolated incidents. The realization that their reliance on the French railway system was being exploited by the very people they sought to subjugate sent shockwaves through the ranks of the Wehrmacht. The impact of these disruptions extended beyond mere logistics. As the German military struggled to maintain its supply chains, the morale of the troops began to wane. Soldiers who had once marched with confidence now found themselves questioning the efficacy of their command. The whispers of sabotage and resistance spread among the ranks, sowing seeds of doubt and fear. The once unshakable belief in German superiority began to erode, replaced by an unsettling awareness of vulnerability. In response to the escalating sabotage, the German command implemented increasingly severe measures. They intensified security protocols, deploying more troops to guard railway stations and tracks. Surveillance became commonplace, with informants infiltrating the ranks of railway workers in an attempt to uncover the identities of those involved in the resistance. The atmosphere of paranoia and fear permeated the railways, as workers faced the constant threat of arrest and reprisals. Yet, rather than quelling the spirit of resistance, these measures only served to galvanize the resolve of the railway workers. The moral dilemmas faced by members of Resistance Wehr intensified as the stakes grew higher. Each act of sabotage carried the weight of potential consequences not only for the workers involved but also for their families and communities. The German response to resistance was often brutal, with reprisals against civilians becoming a common tactic. The workers grappled with the knowledge that their actions could lead to the suffering of innocent people, yet they remained steadfast in their belief that their sabotage was a necessary means to end. The desire for liberation and the hope of a free France outweighed the risks, propelling them forward in their fight against oppression. As the Allied forces began to make significant gains in Europe, the actions of Resistance Wehr took on even greater significance. The sabotage efforts were not only a means of undermining the German war effort but also a way to signal to the Allies that there was a vibrant and active resistance movement in France. The railway workers understood that their actions could play a crucial role in the broader context of the war, serving as a rallying cry for those who longed for liberation. By the spring of 1944, the cumulative effects of the sabotage were becoming increasingly apparent. The German military, once a well-oiled machine, was now grappling with a series of logistical failures that hampered their ability to respond effectively to Allied advances. The Allies, buoyed by intelligence reports of the disruptions, began to plan their operations with newfound confidence, knowing that the French resistance was actively working to weaken the enemy from within. The turning point had been reached. The actions of Resistance Wehr had not only disrupted the German war effort but had also transformed the railway workers into symbols of defiance and resilience. Their bravery in the face of overwhelming odds inspired others to join the fight, leading to a surge in resistance activities across France. The once quiet whispers of dissent had grown into a resounding chorus, echoing through the streets and railways of occupied France. As the summer of 1944 approached, the resistance prepared for a confrontation that would determine the fate of France and the course of the war. The German command, now acutely aware of the threat posed by the resistance, would soon find themselves facing a united front of defiance, fueled by the sacrifices and bravery of those who had dared to challenge their authority. The liberation of France in the summer of 1944 marked a watershed moment in the nation's history, and the contributions of Resistance Wehr were integral to this transformation. As Allied forces swept through the country, The railway workers who had once operated in the shadows emerged as heroes, their acts of sabotage and defiance celebrated as pivotal in the struggle against Nazi occupation. The aftermath of their efforts would reshape not only the landscape of France but also the collective consciousness of its people. In the wake of liberation, the narrative surrounding the resistance began to evolve. The actions of Resistance Wehr and other resistance groups were recognized as vital components of the fight against oppression, and the railway workers were hailed as symbols of national pride. Their bravery had demonstrated that even in the darkest of times, ordinary citizens could rise against tyranny and effect change. The stories of their sabotage efforts became woven into the fabric of French identity, celebrated in literature, film, and public discourse. However, the aftermath was not without its complexities. The transition from occupation to liberation was fraught with challenges, as the nation grappled with the scars left by years of war and oppression. The moral dilemmas faced by members of Resistance Wehr during their acts of sabotage lingered in the collective memory. Many railway workers were haunted by the knowledge that their actions had consequences, sometimes resulting in the suffering of innocent civilians. The question of collaboration and resistance became a contentious topic, as the nation sought to reconcile its past with the hope for a unified future. In the years following the war, the legacy of Resistance Wehr would continue to resonate. The railway workers who had once operated in secrecy became celebrated figures, their stories serving as a reminder of the power of collective action and the importance of standing up against injustice. The French government recognized the contributions of the resistance, with many members awarded medals and honors for their bravery. The narrative of the resistance became a source of inspiration for future generations, instilling a sense of civic duty and the belief that individuals could make a difference in the face of adversity. The transformation of the railway system itself was also notable. In the post-war years, the French railway network underwent significant modernization and expansion, reflecting a renewed commitment to rebuilding the nation. The lessons learned from the sabotage efforts of Resistance Wehr informed new approaches to railway operations, emphasizing the importance of security and resilience in the face of potential threats. The railway workers, once seen as mere cogs in the machine, were now recognized as vital contributors to the nation's infrastructure and identity. As France moved forward, the legacy of Resistance Wehr served as a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance and resistance against tyranny. The spirit of defiance that had fueled their actions became ingrained in the national consciousness, inspiring future movements for justice and equality. The railway workers' commitment to their cause demonstrated that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit could prevail. In the years that followed, the stories of Resistance Wehr would be retold, not only as a testament to their bravery but also as a call to action for future generations. The lessons learned from their experiences would resonate in the hearts of those who sought to challenge injustice, reminding them that Norway's fight for freedom is a continuous struggle that requires courage and resilience. As the dust settled on the war and France began to rebuild, the legacy of Resistance Wehr endured, a beacon of hope and a testament to the power of ordinary individuals to effect extraordinary change. Their story became a part of the larger narrative of resistance, a reminder that in the darkest of times, the light of courage and defiance can shine through, illuminating the path toward a brighter future. The legacy of Resistance Wehr and the broader French resistance movement continues to resonate in contemporary society, serving as a powerful reminder of the importance of standing up against oppression and injustice. Their actions during the Nazi occupation of France exemplified the courage and resilience of ordinary people who, in the face of overwhelming odds, chose to fight for their freedom and the dignity of their nation. In the years following the war, the stories of the railway workers who formed Resistance Wehr became integral to the national narrative of France. Their acts of sabotage and defiance were celebrated not only as military victories but also as moral triumphs that underscored the values of liberty, equality, and fraternity principles that lie at the heart of the French Republic. The railway workers were recognized as heroes, their contributions immortalized in history books, documentaries, and public memorials. This recognition served to inspire future generations to embrace the ideals of resistance and civic engagement. The moral complexities faced by members of Resistance Wehr also sparked important discussions about the nature of resistance and collaboration. As France sought to reconcile its past, the narrative surrounding the resistance became intertwined with questions of identity, accountability, and the collective memory of the war. The actions of Resistance Wehr prompted reflections on the ethical dilemmas inherent in resistance movements, highlighting the sacrifices made by individuals who risked everything for the greater good. These discussions continue to shape contemporary debates about justice, accountability, and the responsibilities of citizens in the face of tyranny. In a world where authoritarianism and oppression persist, the legacy of Resistance Wehr serves as a powerful call to action. Their story is a reminder that resistance is not merely a historical phenomenon but a living struggle that requires vigilance and courage. The railway workers' commitment to their cause exemplifies the idea that ordinary individuals can effect change, inspiring contemporary activists and movements that seek to challenge injustice and advocate for human rights. The spirit of Resistance Wehr is reflected in modern movements for social justice, environmental sustainability, and human rights. Their legacy continues to inspire individuals and groups who stand up against oppression, reminding us that Norway's fight for freedom is a collective endeavor that transcends time and borders. The lessons learned from their experiences resonate in the hearts of those who seek to create a more just and equitable world. As we reflect on the legacy of Resistance Wehr, we are reminded of the power of collective action and the importance of standing in solidarity with those who fight for justice. Their story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring belief that, even in the darkest of times, hope can prevail. The railway workers who dared to resist became symbols of defiance, their actions echoing through history as a reminder that the struggle for freedom is a continuous journey, one that requires courage, sacrifice, and unwavering resolve. In conclusion, the legacy of Resistance Wehr is not just a chapter in the history of World War II, it is a testament to the power of ordinary people to rise against tyranny and effect change. Their story serves as an inspiration for all who seek to challenge injustice and fight for a better world, reminding us that the spirit of resistance is alive and well, waiting to be ignited in the hearts of those who dare to dream of a brighter future. As the dust settled on the battlefields of Europe in 1945, the enduring legacy of the French resistance, particularly the actions of groups like Resistance Wehr, began to take shape. The of World War II marked not only the liberation of France but also a profound transformation in the national consciousness. The bravery and ingenuity of the railway workers who had defied the German occupiers became emblematic of the broader struggle for freedom and justice. In the immediate aftermath of the war, France faced the monumental task of rebuilding a nation that had endured years of occupation and conflict. The narrative of resistance became central to the national identity, as the French sought to reclaim their dignity and pride. The actions of Resistance Wehr and other resistance groups were celebrated as heroic, and the stories of their sacrifices became woven into the fabric of French history. The post-war government, eager to foster a sense of unity and national pride, recognized the contributions of resistance fighters. Many members of Resistance Wehr were honored for their bravery, receiving medals and public accolades. The French government established the National Order of the Legion of Honor, the country's highest distinction, to recognize the valor of those who had fought against the occupiers. This acknowledgement was not merely ceremonial, it served to solidify the narrative of resistance as a cornerstone of French identity. However, the post-war period also brought challenges. The complexities of collaboration and resistance during the occupation led to a reckoning. Some individuals who had collaborated with the Germans faced public trials and retribution, while others who had resisted were celebrated. This dichotomy created tensions within French society, as the nation grappled with its recent past. The actions of Resistance Wehr, while celebrated, also highlighted the moral ambiguities of war and the difficult choices faced by individuals in times of crisis. As the years passed, The legacy of Resistance Wehr and the broader resistance movement continued to be commemorated in various forms. Memorials, museums, and educational programs were established to honor those who had fought for freedom. In Paris, the city's metro stations became sites of remembrance, with plaques and exhibitions dedicated to the railway workers who had risked their lives to disrupt the German war effort. One of the most significant memorials is the Mont Valérien, a site where many resistance fighters were executed during the occupation. Today, it stands as a symbol of sacrifice and resilience, with annual ceremonies held to honor the memory of those who fought against tyranny. The commemoration of resistance fighters has become a vital part of France's national narrative, reinforcing the values of courage, solidarity, and the fight for justice. In addition to physical memorials, the stories of Resistance Wehr members have been preserved through literature, film, and oral histories. Documentaries and historical accounts have sought to capture the essence of their struggle, ensuring that future generations understand the significance of their actions. The legacy of these railway workers has inspired countless works of art, from novels to films, that explore themes of resistance, sacrifice, and the quest for freedom. The impact of Resistance Wehr extends far beyond the immediate post-war years. Their actions during the occupation have had a lasting influence on French national identity and the collective memory of World War II. The narrative of resistance has become a powerful symbol of the French spirit, embodying the values of courage and defiance in the face of oppression. In the decades following the war, the enduring legacy of the resistance has been invoked in various political and social movements. The principles of solidarity and collective action championed by groups like Resistance Wehr have resonated with subsequent generations, inspiring activism and social justice movements across France. The notion that ordinary citizens can rise against tyranny and injustice has become a foundational belief in the French Republic. Moreover, the legacy of Resistance Wehr has contributed to France's approach to contemporary issues, such as immigration, human rights, and global conflicts. The lessons learned from the occupation and the resistance have shaped France's policies and its role on the international stage. The commitment to liberty, equality, and fraternity remains a guiding principle, as the nation seeks to uphold these values in an increasingly complex world. The story of Resistance Wehr has also resonated beyond France, serving as a model for resistance movements worldwide. The tactics employed by railway workers' sabotage, subversion, and the power of collective action have been studied and emulated by various groups fighting against oppression and injustice. The legacy of Resistance Wehr is a testament to the idea that ordinary people, armed with knowledge and determination, can effect change even in the face of overwhelming odds. In contemporary discussions about resistance and civil disobedience, the actions of Resistance Wehr are often cited as an example of how individuals can challenge oppressive regimes. The principles of solidarity and community action that defined their efforts continue to inspire movements for social justice, environmental activism, and human rights across the globe. The legacy of these railway workers serves as a reminder that Norway's fight for freedom is ongoing and that the spirit of resistance can manifest in many forms. As we reflect on the legacy of Resistance Wehr, it becomes clear that their actions were not merely acts of defiance against an occupier. They were expressions of hope and resilience in the face of despair. The railway workers who risked their lives to sabotage the German war effort embodied the spirit of a nation yearning for freedom. Their legacy is a powerful reminder of the importance of standing up against oppression and the enduring impact of collective action. In a world still grappling with issues of tyranny and injustice, the story of Resistance Wehr serves as an enduring source of inspiration. It reminds us that Norway's fight for freedom is a shared responsibility, one that transcends borders and generations. The courage of those who stood against the tide of oppression during World War II continues to resonate, urging us to uphold the values of justice, solidarity, and resistance in our own lives. As we commemorate the sacrifices of the past, we must also remain vigilant in our commitment to a future where freedom and dignity are upheld for all. The legacy of Resistance Wehr is not just a chapter in history, it is a call to action for each of us to be agents of change in our own communities and to honor the spirit of resistance that defines the human experience.